Chapter 1. The Tale of the Enchanted Forest. Tell us a story, Webber. Oh yes, Webber, please. The young animals of the barren Pangaean desert chimed in, their eyes wide with excitement. Webber, the friendly brown bear, chuckled. What story should I tell today? The one about the enchanted forest, Belts the boar squealed. Webber's eyes sparkled. All right then, he said warmly. He loved that story. Like most of the tales he told, it was close to his heart. Well, children, he began, settling into a comfortable seat. A long, long time ago, these very lands we now call home were surrounded by lush forests, sparkling oceans, towering mountains and cliffs that touched the sky. Life was full of beauty and wonder. Hundreds of animal species lived here, peacefully and joyfully. The animals leaned closer. One day, an unexpected storm rolled in, a violent dry lightning storm, unlike anything ever seen in Pangaea. Animals ran for shelter, praying no one would be harmed and that the fire wouldn't follow. Webber paused for dramatic effect. Then it happened. A giant bolt of lightning, bright blue, purple and pink, struck the ground where a patch of mycelium grew. But instead of destroying it, something magical occurred. The children gasped. The mycelium glowed. Radiant purples, blues and pinks lit up the forest floor. It began to spread, glowing beneath the soil, wrapping around roots and trees. Even in the darkest corners, the ground sparkled like a night sky. The storm passed, but the glow remained. As night fell and the animals went to their burrows, the world around them shimmered. The forest was still. Then came morning. When the sun rose, the animals awoke to something truly incredible. Standing tall in the heart of the forest was a magnificent giant mushroom, 15 meters tall, with a cap 30 meters wide. Trees grew from its top, reaching another 20 meters into the sky. Sparkling flowers bloomed. Glittering insects danced in the air, and silvery golden rocks framed a crystal clear stream that flowed in a circle around a breathtaking fungi castle. The children's mouths hung open. The stream was filled with enormous pink fish that shimmered in the light. They swam in a loop, disappearing over the edge of the fungi and reappearing again like magic. Ivy along the stem glowed when the sunlight touched it. Reeds swayed gently at the base, and the entire stem sparkled like a sky full of stars. All the animals were silent, enchanted. From that moment on, Webber continued, everything changed. The animals began to act differently. They started drawing on rocks, inside caves, and along cliff walls, symbols, stories, sharing their knowledge. No one knew how they learned it, but they believed the mycelium awakened something inside of them. Intelligence, connection, harmony. The enchanted forest became a haven. The mycelium taught the animals to grow strong, to heal, and to thrive together. It linked everything, animals, plants, fungi, moss. The forest flourished. Webber's voice softened. Life was perfect. He paused, looking off into the distance. He thought to himself, I remember what it felt like to be a cub back then. Safe, loved, surrounded by joy. His tone darkened. But then the paintings changed. The children tensed. They showed strange beings, tall creatures who walked on two legs. Their arms were long, and they had hands like chimpanzees. They only had fur on their heads and faces. They wore something over their bodies that the animals didn't have a name for. And they came with machines, giant, loud machines that tore trees from the earth. The young squirrel, Jarrah, whimpered, "This part is scary." "It's all right," Weber said gently. "This part gives me nightmares too. Would you like a different story?" But the animals, young and old, cried out, "No!" Jarrah sniffled and nestled deeper into Weber's fur. "Keep going, please." Weber nodded and continued. The drawing showed the forest dying. The beautiful glow of the mycelium began to fade. One painting showed a bolt of lightning striking the fungi castle. The castle glowed brightly and then collapsed, as if the magic holding it together had vanished. In its place was a diamond-like gem, glistening where the castle once stood. The mycelium told the animals this gem was the heart of the forest. It had to be protected at all costs. Weber lifted his head proudly. The bravest of the animals were the brown bears. Mr. and Mrs. Bear were chosen to climb the great mushroom and retrieve the gem. Before they left, Mrs. Bear handed her cub to the other animals. Then the two brave bears began their climb. They climbed for what felt like hours. At the top, they paused in awe of the beauty of the forest, but something felt wrong. Still, they pressed on towards the gem. Meanwhile, the tall creatures noticed the mushroom and sent machines to destroy it. They wrapped something red around the stem, vines, but not natural ones. Then one of them lit it with fire and shouted a word the animals didn't understand. "Clear!" Bang! Weber clapped his paws together loudly. All the animals jumped. Jarrah buried his face again in Weber's fur. The explosion shook the forest. Trees fell, rocks lifted. The sky filled with smoke and debris. The animals ran for their lives. Some escaped. Many did not. When the dust settled, the mushroom was gone. The mycelium had turned black. The gem was missing, and the cub cried out for parents who never returned. The clearing was silent. Even the breeze seemed to stop. A few months later, the enchanted forest was no more. All that remains now is this: dust, rock, and my memories. Weber's eyes glistened. Tears rolled down his cheeks. The children gathered close, wrapping him in a warm hug. They didn't understand why this story touched Weber so deeply, but they could feel his sorrow. And deep inside, they all wished they could see the forest for themselves. Just once. Chapter 2. It is not just a story. Weber could feel the weight in his chest, grief that had lived there for far too long. But something had shifted. He stood up tall, his voice clear and strong, as he looked out over the animals, young and old. "My friends," he began, "the stories you've heard all your lives, they are true. A hush fell over the clearing. They are not just tales to pass the time. They are memories of what really happened when I was just a cub. Gasps rippled through the crowd, but Webber's voice grew firmer. I believe we can bring the enchanted forest back. All we need to do is find the diamond-like gem. There was a pause. But Webber, Lana the wolf spoke softly, her golden eyes filled with worry. It's just a story, isn't it? She hoped, deep down, that it was. Because if it wasn't, then her friend had lost more than she could bear to imagine. Webber looked at her gently and shook his head. No, Lana, it's not just a story. He took a deep breath. I am the cub in the drawings. It was my mum and dad who climbed to the top of the mushroom to retrieve the gem. Lana let out a mournful howl that echoed across the quiet desert. Oh, Webber, I'm so sorry. She bowed her head in sorrow, not just for her friend, but for what had been lost. Webber looked around at the circle of listening hearts. We need to work together, he said. If we can find the gem, maybe, just maybe, we can bring back the forest, a place where every creature once felt safe, full, and loved. Most of the animals had never seen the enchanted forest, except through Webber's stories. But those stories meant everything. They gave them hope, and now, even if the gem never existed at all, they would still search, because Webber believed in it. And belief was more than they'd had in a long time. Even a flicker of hope was better than none. Many of them had already been thinking about leaving the barren desert behind. The heat, the hunger, endless fight for survival. It was no life at all. Maybe, just maybe, there was a better place out there. Our home, Pangaea, is hurting, Webber said, his eyes scanning the faces of his friends. And we're the ones who have to save it. The animals nodded, every last one of them. But the sun had already begun to rise, and the desert sun showed no mercy. It scorched the earth and burned through the fur and feathers alike. Not even the snakes or lizards dared to slither out after midday. As soon as the sun sets, Webber said, we'll meet back here and begin our search. With that, the animals slipped away into the shadows, retreating into deep burrows, caves, and crevices, anywhere they could find protection from the sun's cruel fire. And then, when the sky began to cool and the stars blinked awake, the animals emerged once more. Something was different now. They had a mission, a reason, a shared purpose that lifted their tired spirits. They began the search for the diamond-like gem, the heart of the enchanted forest. One night turned into many. Weeks passed, then months, and before they knew it, 2 long years had slipped by. But hope is a delicate thing. It fades quietly. Their numbers began to shrink, from 30 animals to 25, then 20, then 18. Starvation, exhaustion, and sorrow took their toll. The animals' hearts grew heavy, their bodies weak, and still there was no gem, no glow, no forest, no sign of hope. And the pain, the waiting, the wondering became almost too much to bear. Chapter 3, The Migration. Why Why, Webber? Why do we keep searching and searching? Lana's voice trembled as she looked into her friend's tired eyes. None of us have ever seen the enchanted forest. How do we even know it existed? Her words echoed through the stillness, and though she spoke softly, they carried the weight of surrender. Webber said nothing. His heart ached. He was getting old now, and even he, once so full of hope, was beginning to wonder if the forest he remembered was just a beautiful dream. After all, he had only been a tiny cub when it all disappeared. Luna, the wise old owl, stepped forward and gave a soft, mournful hoot. I think it's time for us to find a new home, she said gently. We're dying, Webber, of hunger, thirst, and that burning sun. If we stay here, we will not survive. Webber lowered his head, taking in her words. He could feel the truth in them, their pain, their exhaustion. He had felt it too. Part of him wanted to give up, but something deep inside, something older than memory, still whispered to him, Don't stop now, Webber. Slowly, Webber stood, his joints ached, and he held himself tall and proud. No, he said firmly. We will find it. I know we will. I feel it. A silence followed, broken only by the dry wind. There's nowhere left to look, Webber, said Tippy quietly. Tippy was a small rainforest rat. His ears had been burned away by the relentless sun. The pads of his hands and feet were cracked, bleeding and raw. He was starving, frightened, and in his heart he feared. His end was near. I've spoken to the others, Tippy continued, trying to sound brave. We've decided to leave. We need to find food, water, shade. We can't survive here anymore. He paused as a single tear fell from his cheek and dried instantly on the scorched ground. There's nothing left for us here. There never was, Webber, not in our lifetime. The others nodded slowly in agreement. Their decision was made. Webber's heart cracked in two. He wanted to scream, to beg them to stay just a little longer. He wanted to tell them he knew they were close, that sometimes he saw tiny specks of light glowing faintly in the dust, signs that the mycelium may still live beneath the surface. But when he showed the others, they saw nothing. They couldn't feel the pull like he could. To them, it was just another story, and they were too tired to chase stories anymore. Webber looked at his friends, his family. He knew he couldn't ask them to suffer any longer. Not for him, not for his hope. He nodded slowly. I understand, he said, voice thick with emotion. You need to go, and I wish you all the best. The animals gathered around him, each one heavy with sadness. They had hoped he would come with them, but they knew better than to try and change the mind of an old bear whose heart lived in the past. The enchanted forest was Webber's home, even if now it was nothing more than sand and memory. Jarrah, the young squirrel, ran forward and wrapped his tiny arms around Webber's furry chest. I wish you would come with us, he whispered. You mean so much to all of us. Webber leaned down and nuzzled the little one gently. Goodbye, Jarrah, he said quietly. Then he sat on the ground, Still and silent, his friends turned and began to walk away. He watched until they disappeared in the horizon. "I will miss you all," he whispered to the wind. Chapter 4. Webber's Discovery. Weeks passed. Webber had never felt so lonely. Only one memory compared: the day he lost his parents. He walked slowly now on all fours, his heavy paws dragging through the dust. His eyes stayed low, watching the ground. Tiny, glittering specks, soft, glowing and faint, dotted the earth beneath him. More and more of them every day. Then something strange happened. Webber looked up. Everything was quiet, too quiet. No wind, no insects, not even the whisper of sand across the rocks. The silence wrapped around him like a heavy blanket. With a sigh, Webber plunked down onto the ground and gazed up at the sky. It was, as always, cloudless. The moon was missing tonight, leaving only stars above him. His nighttime escape from pain and grief. He sat in the stillness. A soft vibration tickled beneath his paws. Webber stood slowly. Unsure of what he was feeling, he began to walk, with no destination, no plan, just moving. But the farther he walked, the stronger the vibration became. Now he could feel it, and he could hear it, a low hum like a heartbeat echoing through the ground. Webber froze. His fur was tugging, as if being pulled gently, insistently, towards something unseen. He gave in to the feeling and followed. With every step, the glowing specks grew brighter, closer, more concentrated. The sky above him, once starry and open, was darkening. Thick black clouds began to roll in, huge and heavy, covering the night sky. "Wow," Webber whispered, his eyes wide. "A storm? Rain in Pangaea? After 50 years? He laughed again, though there was no joy in it. "Rain, Webber? You're losing your mind," he muttered to himself. Still he walked. The memories crept in, warm and bittersweet, of the enchanted forest, of laughter, glowing mushrooms, flowering streams, and the feeling of home, of his friends, gone now, searching for safety far away. He told himself these memories came from the rock drawings, but deep down he wasn't sure. How could something he'd never lived through feel so real? The ground beneath him was glowing now, vivid and bright, almost blinding. The sky was nearly black, and then Webber stopped. At his feet, the brightest speck yet pulsed with light. Webber dropped to the ground and began to dig. Dust flew into the air. He clawed gently, carefully, driven by a pull he couldn't explain. A whisper in his soul told him to keep going. So he did. He dug through the night. The dark skies above stayed still. No sunrise, no moonlight, just darkness and glowing earth. And joy, a strange, rising joy began to bubble inside of him. He didn't know why, but he felt alive. Then suddenly his claws struck something soft, wet, sticky, a jelly-like substance, thick and white. It shimmered faintly. Webber froze. Another voice echoed in his mind. "Move, now!" It wasn't fear. He knew this feeling. It wasn't danger. It was change. Something big was about to happen. Without hesitation, Weber leapt back and ran. He sprinted to a safe distance, turning just in time to see, crack-a-boom! A lightning bolt, blue, purple and pink, ripped through the black clouds and struck the glowing jelly. Weber gasped. He had seen this before, not in life, but in a cave drawings of his childhood. This was the moment, the beginning of it all. His eyes sparkled with wonder. "We did it!" he cried, spinning around. "Friends, come see! You have to see this!" But the words faded into the wind. Weber's voice fell silent. He remembered. They were gone, off searching for food, water and shelter. Gone from this place. Gone from him. He sat down again, staring at the glowing ground, at the clouds above, and for the first time in years, Weber felt hope returning. Chapter 5. Enchanted Mycelium. Everything around Weber began to glow. The ground beneath his paws shimmered with colour. The sky above radiated with light. Everything in between and beyond hummed with energy. At the centre of it all, where the lightning had struck, something began to rise. A massive bloom unfurled like a glowing flower, its petals stretched outwards in every direction. Weber's mouth fell open. Right in the middle of the shining white jelly was the diamond-like gem. Tears welled in his eyes. There it is, just as he remembered from the drawings, just as he had always believed. The heart of the enchanted forest. He stepped forward, gently reaching for it, and as his paw touched the gem, energy surged through him. A connection. Suddenly, he felt everything. The pulse of the earth, the breath of the trees that hadn't yet grown, the soft voice of the forest speaking directly to his heart. The enchanted forest was alive, and now Weber was a part of it. For the first time in his life, he knew without doubt that the stories were true. His memories were real, and the forest had been waiting for him. He watched in wonder as the glowing light began to spread, spilling across the barren land like water. The mycelium whispered to him, "By morning, the forest will return, whole and vibrant, as if it had never died." It told him that he had a new purpose now. He was no longer just a storyteller. He was the guardian of the heart. Weber's chest swelled with pride and joy. He wasn't sure if the feelings were his own or the mycelium's, but either way, they warmed him to his core. Together, Weber and the great mycelium began to plan. "We must protect the forest," Weber said. "What if something comes to destroy it again?" He suggested a dimensional force field, an invisible barrier that would keep out anything or anyone who meant harm. Any creature with bad intentions would be turned away, their memories of the forest erased. The diamond-like gem would be the source of this powerful protection. The mycelium agreed. Together, they would ensure that Pangaea would be reborn and never lost again. "How do I protect the gem?" Weber asked. The mycelium answered with a vision, a clear picture in his mind. He saw a giant mushroom, invisible to all but him, towering and wide. It would be his sanctuary. On its crown, a castle would sit, grown entirely from fungi and mycelium. housing the gem in safety and silence. This castle and everything inside it would exist in 2 dimensions at once. In one, Weber could live, teach, and share the stories of the past. In the other, the gem would be hidden, protected from danger, protected from greed. Weber had more questions, so many things he longed to understand. What had truly happened to his parents? Were they lost forever? But when he turned to ask, he could feel the mycelium's focus elsewhere. It was busy, growing, weaving, recreating the forest. Weber let his questions go. He didn't need all the answers. Not tonight. Instead, he turned his thoughts to what was coming, a new forest, a future where baby animals would be born into a world of peace and abundance, where they would never know the suffering of those who came before them. That thought filled Weber with the purest of joy. He lay down on the soft, glowing earth. His eyes grew heavy as the forest continued to form around him. Gentle winds, lush trees, the soft rustle of new leaves. For the first time in years, he wasn't afraid of the sun. He trusted the mycelium completely. As he drifted off to sleep, dreams embraced him like an old friend. In his dream, the forest had never died. He had grown up with his mother and father. He had friends, laughter, and endless adventures. The dream gave him years of memories he'd never had, but deeply needed. When Weber awoke, he was somewhere entirely new. Chapter 6. Weber's Giant Fungi. Weber sat up slowly, blinking as the morning light filtered through the soft glow of the forest. He looked around and gasped with wonder. He was no longer on the scorched desert floor. He was on the giant mushroom. A small path stretched out before him, leading upwards towards the fungi castle. As he walked, he admired the stunning, intricate detail crafted by the mycelium. The walls shimmered with gentle colours, pulsing with life. The shapes and patterns were just like those painted long ago by the ancient animals on the cliff walls. Weber paused beside a sparkling stream. Crystal clear water flowed gently, dancing with glimmers of light, as if diamonds were scattered across its surface. Bright pink fish swam in slow circles beneath the glittering lilies. Towering trees swayed above him, and blooming flowers filled the air with the sweetest scent. It was more beautiful than he had ever imagined, more vibrant than even his memories. He continued walking across the enchanted lands of the giant mushroom, marveling at every step. Then, in the distance, he saw 2 figures, large, brown, familiar. He didn't feel fear. He felt drawn to them. He moved closer, heart pounding, curiosity building. As the figures turned, Weber froze. His breath caught in his throat. Standing before him were his mum and dad. They looked exactly as they had in his memories, strong, warm, full of life. They hadn't aged a day. "Mum? Dad?" he whispered, his voice shaking. Their faces lit up with joy. "Weber!" they cried together, rushing towards him with open arms. In the next moment, he was wrapped in their embrace, warm, safe, and real. I missed you, Webber whimpered, holding them tight. I missed you both so much. Tears rolled down his cheeks, not tears of sorrow, tears of joy. You both look exactly the same, Webber said, pulling back to study their faces in awe. How is this possible? He didn't understand how he could be older than they were now, but in that moment, it didn't matter. The questions could wait. The hows and whys didn't need answering right now. All that mattered was this moment. They were together, and it was real. They walked side by side for hours, talking, laughing, remembering. The path seemed endless, winding through a never-ending forest of glowing trees and blooming flowers. The air shimmered with magic. The castle stood proudly in the distance, never getting closer, yet always nearby, like a dream just within reach. For the first time in his life, Webber felt completely safe. He was home. Chapter 7. The Big Surprise. The forest animals had been travelling for weeks. Each day they dug shallow burrows to hide from the scorching sun, but the further they moved from the place they once called home, the hotter the earth became. Their shelters gave little relief. The sun seemed angrier here, merciless and unrelenting. They were always tired, always hungry, and always on the edge of giving up. One early morning, just before sunrise, they sat huddled together, too exhausted to dig, too weak to move. They lay side by side, whispering quiet goodbyes in their hearts, believing this would be the last time they would see one another again. And then they fell asleep. But when the animals woke, something felt different. They were still alive. The heat was gone. The ground was cool and soft beneath them. No burning, no pain. As they sat up, they realized they were no longer lying on hard, cracked earth. They were resting on thick beds of moss, soft and springy beneath their fur and paws. They slowly stood up, looking around in awe. Towering trees surrounded them, their leafy canopies swaying gently in the breeze that smelled of fresh rain and wild flowers. In the distance, they could hear the soft, soothing roar of a waterfall, though they couldn't yet see it. Beneath their feet, the ground glowed. Glowing mycelium wove its way through the soil, lighting up with every step they took. Bright, soft colours pulsed gently, as if welcoming them home. The animals stood in silence, eyes wide, hearts full. In that moment, they all knew, without a single doubt, Webber's stories were true. He had done it. He had found the diamond-like gem. He had found the heart of the enchanted forest. Webber did it! Laura the lynx howled joyfully. Cheers echoed through the forest as the animals embraced, cried, and laughed all at once. The enchanted forest was real. and it was even more magnificent than they had ever imagined. Their exhaustion melted away. The pain of their long journey lifted like a shadow disappearing in the light. Around them, more animals began to stir, animals of all shapes and sizes, some familiar, some unlike anything they had seen before. They too were waking up to a new world, a world reborn. The enchanted forest had returned, and so had hope. Chapter 8. Webber's Farewell to His Friends. From the top of the giant mushroom, Webber gazed out over the enchanted forest. He could see everything, every tree, every stream, and every animal, new and old, finding their place in this reborn world. Though they couldn't see him, he could see them. He felt them with his heart, with his spirit, and with the ever-growing connection he now shared through the Enchanted Mycelium. Some of the animals below had never even met him, but he wasn't worried. His friends would tell them his story. They would tell of the kind old bear who never gave up, the one who believed in the impossible, the one who remembered the forest. Webber smiled. He knew that every creature, big and small, would find joy, safety, and belonging here in the enchanted forest on the renewed lands of Pangaea. Soon, they would all meet the mycelium for themselves. They would feel the forest speak to them, guide them, welcome them home. Webber also knew something else, something he had made peace with. He would never see his friends again, at least not in the same way he had before. His path was now different. He would remain here, within the forest, within the mycelium, within the very heartbeat of the land. But that didn't mean goodbye. The enchanted mycelium had shown him the truth. They would always be connected, in dreams, in feelings, in the whisper of the wind through the trees. He would be there, because now it was his sacred duty to teach all creatures, now and in the future, how to stay connected, how to listen to the forest, how to protect it, and how to never forget. Webber stood tall atop the giant mushroom and took a deep, peaceful breath. He was not alone. He was home, and his story was just the beginning of many, many more to come. Epilogue. And so the forest grows, and so the enchanted forest stood tall once more, its roots deep in the earth, its branches stretched towards the stars. The winds whispered ancient songs, the rivers carried stories downstream, and the glowing mycelium wove every creature's heart together in a quiet, magical rhythm. The animals lived in peace, passing down tales of the wise bear who had once dreamed of a forest no one else remembered. A bear who listened, who waited, and who believed. Children were born under moonlight and moss, learning to walk on soft paths lit by the glowing ground. They would grow up never knowing hunger, never fearing the sun, and they would know Webber. They would feel him in the soil, in the stories, in the stillness between stars. And whenever the forest listened, it was Webber who answered, because some stories never end. They simply grow, like trees, like roots, like love. And somewhere high above, on the tallest mushroom under the softest sky, Webber was smiling.